pacing of it, and how they, when they're using the holds and when they're not using the holds.
I see they got the giant chair back.
Yeah, that's what I was saying at the start, like how they've used the same one again.
That's what I associate with King of the Ring. I mean, it was obviously weren't there that long, but it's one of those sets that they really must have put effort into getting, because you don't just suddenly come up with that. It's got to be made specially.
Trademark Ric Flair there, hitting his head to the floor. I remember playing the old SmackDown games at this point. If I was Ric Flair, I'd always press the wrong bloody button, and he'd do that bit. That signature bit where he just hit himself to the floor. He'd be like, no, stop doing that. Guerrero and I going to the old top again. So I think that him and Van Dam were using the frog splash, weren't they, at this time?
Yeah, it was a popular move back then. Kind of like what the spear is today, I guess.
Yeah. That's typical Ric Flair there.
Going to get a bit of interference now then.
So Benoit and Guerrero were together at this point, I believe. They were like united. I think they were like more of a tag team around this time as well. As Rick applies his famous figure four. Yeah, I mean, but this is what I'm saying about the roster. I mean, at this point, you're looking at these two guys. Well, both of these, of course, have become icon. Well, Rick was already an icon. There's no doubt about that. But of course, Guerrero eventually would be, an even bigger name for sure. This was again, it was just such a time where I feel like this was the correct time to do a brand split, because there were so many guys. Whereas today, it's like it's so loose, and it's like they kind of need half of the NXT guys to be on both brands, and almost kind of like, I don't know, kind of just not even have NXT, because they just don't have enough stars to fill out everything.
Yeah, SmackDown in particular, it feels like a place where if two of their top guys on that roster went off with an injury, they'd be in some serious trouble.
Yeah.
Say if like Dean Ambrose and AJ were injured, then SmackDown would be in some dire straits.
Yeah, pretty big trouble then.
There's some hard chops. I can hear them, and my TV's on like the lowest set. That's the only thing I can hear.
Guerrero's going to the top. Rick Gannon going to get him back. Ric Flair's selling is still masterful to watch. Actually, I think I would definitely say a lot of the guys on WWE's roster currently need to go back somewhat and watch how some of the guys used to sell, how important it is. It's somewhat of an art that's getting lost. I do hear a lot of wrestlers, who used to wrestle. That's one of their biggest complaints of today's wrestling, is that there's not so much emphasis on selling. Even from the announcers, that they don't do a very good job of kind of like getting the fan invested of what is going on when someone is trying to sell something in the ring and what a move is kind of doing and all things like that. As we see the crossface now going on Ric Flair on the outside of the ring, the referee completely, not seeing it for some insane reason.
I was going to say, it's an incredibly risky kind of move to do with the referee's back, and he could turn around at any moment during that.
But he's getting thrown out anyway.
He's not believing it. He's not believing Ric Flair just fell out of the ring.
Yeah.
He can get up.
Oh, and now we've got another interfere. So now we've got Bubba. Okay, bang, he's down. So this would have been when Bubba Ray and Devon had split, Matt. This would have been like Brother Devon on SmackDown now, Testify and all that lot. And of course Bubba Ray was trying to do his own thing on Raw.
Yeah, and man, that really worked out well for Devon, didn't it?
Didn't pan out at all.
Oh, we did get our first glimpse of Batista though.
Of course, that lovely gimmick that he enjoyed so much. I'm sure. Now Benoit back in this again, trying to get back in the ring, not happy. Well, that was a very, very unique, interesting match between two very completely different kind of styles, and a match that I probably wouldn't have ever known ever existed, quite frankly. Sure what the whole deal was between Bubba Ray and Rick, but there you go. Must have been a fan.
This looks like an interesting advert.
Yes, this is when, of course, things for the WWF. This is another thing we should probably point out. This is the first King of the Ring that had the F missing. Of course, WWE had to change it through reasons, of course, with the World Wildlife Foundation. Of course, back to the world in WWE New York. So still here at this time. But yeah, of course, F got the F out, Matt. That was the big slogan back then, wasn't it? There's William Regal and Chris Nowinski. How about that then?
And are they in WWE New York?
They are indeed.
Oh man, we keep saying it, but man, I wish that place was still open.
Yeah, this would have definitely been a go-to place when we hit New York. No doubt about that. I would have definitely been there.
So is that like, what is that background? Is that like a ring? Is it, or is?
I'm trying to work it out. God knows what he did used to have it going on in there, but
maybe that was a kind of stage, and they had it in the ring.
Okay, now we've got a women's title here, Matt. So we did at one time have a correct terminology, didn't we? Had the women's belt going on here, and currently coming out is Molly Holly.
Good old granny panties herself.
Yeah, that was that poster that came up just before that. Now Molly Holly. I was trying to think. Was I a fan of her wrestling? I can't really remember her wrestling all that much. I know she did have a long career. She wasn't terrible, but she had a lot of different. She played a lot of different roles, didn't she, Matt, over her time?
Yeah, and definitely someone, I guess, that got by on her wrestling talent more than anything else.
Yeah.
I think it was a difficult time for her because whereas she might have been a pretty good wrestler, there wasn't too many. You've got to have work with someone else of equal level, haven't you? And there wasn't too many of them about.
Yeah. And here we go. The current women's champion, the one, the only, Trish Stratus. Who was we've seen on, I think, these before when she came out with TNA, didn't we? Was it TNT or whatever they were called? Yeah, TNA, Test and Albert.
Yeah. Not to be confused with that other company.
Yeah, with the one that hasn't got TNA. The tag team has probably got more of a rep than bloody TNA has these days for selling stuff, but. There might be some people there thinking when you said she came out with TNA, you're like, what? Yeah,
when was she in TNA?
And of course, she was. She made a very quick rise to the top, didn't she, Trish Stratus?
Yeah.
wrestling
I
abilities.
wonder what it was that Vince liked about her.
God, you can only imagine.
Maybe it was the whole bark like a dog kind of thing.
Yeah, she definitely had to go through it. Or would go through it, shall we say.
Yeah.
But, I mean, this division, the women's division, again, we were at a time where it was wrestling, but there were so many throwbacks as well, Matt. Like, there was, the whole bra and panties and Playboy matches still were going to be a thing to come, and there's all sorts of crazy stuff, wasn't there?
There was women striving to make the breakthroughs that we have today, but there were so many limitations placed on them, and very chauvinistic kind of time.
Yeah.
And I guess you can understand why, because it kind of did generate a buzz about the women's wrestling, all for the wrong reasons, of course. Yeah. But people did like to see sort of half-naked women, so. At the time, that's what was selling. So I guess Vince was like, well, if that's what they want, we'll give it to them.
Yeah, it must have been pretty difficult for the female performers that really wanted to tell stories and do what the guys were doing, just in their way. But it must have been so difficult in how it was all being produced by the WWE at the time, when you had just these. Like, for instance, if they had like a Halloween or Christmas, they'd all be made to sort of go out and wear the costumes, wouldn't they? And you had to sort of go out half naked. It was always like something like that going on. So it was always quite difficult to be consistent and legit kind of performer, and get that respect, I guess. But I will say one thing: this match so far has probably been pretty, the opposite to all that. Like, this has been much more about the in-ring stuff than anything else so far.
Yeah, and surprisingly enough, though, like, even though they did have so much of that gimmick kind of stuff with the women, when you ask people at this time, what do you remember about the women's division and what kind of matches and feuds, they'd always say Trish and Lita, and that's because they were given that freedom to go out there and just get over basically purely on the wrestling in the ring.
Yeah.
That was one of the great things. And also, similarly, Victoria at the time, she was very good at the wrestling and just getting over on the pure story. I know they gave her a crazy kind of gimmick, but she was doing new kind of things, just going in as hardcore kind of matches for the women.
Yeah, the females I felt sorry for were like Jazz. I don't know if you remember her, but she come from ECW and she was tough. I mean, she was like China. She was wrestling the guys down there, and she was going through all kinds of stuff, and she was, she was somebody that you felt could legitimately do damage, and she was good. But man, in this kind of time when you not only had to sort of wrestle, but you had to have the look. You had to have a certain kind of look.
So, are you telling me that's where Nicole Bass went wrong?
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely went wrong for that reason. But it's kind of a shame. But Jazz would have been one of the ones, I think. Like, if she'd have been around today, she would have definitely been one of the hell of a tough cookie to have around. But yeah, you did have that, because if you didn't have it, you had to have one of these crazy kind of gimmicks like Molly's doing right now, and kind of almost be sort of, have that kind of total. Any kind of credibility in you, like with your character, like you had to play this kind of woman that didn't have anything about her. She was plain, she didn't fit in with anyone else. You had to have that kind of thing going for you, because of course this was a time we had Stacey Keebler in, Tori Wilson, Dawn Marie, so you had a lot of that going on. But I would say this match has been been pretty decent, pretty solid, I would say.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely, the Molly, Trish, and I suppose Lita at the time would be considered the top kind of women workers, as what the abilities in the ring can actually do.
I mean,
go on. I never really had anything against Tori and Stacey and all that, but I think they got where they were